Hello and welcome to SME TV. I'm your host Angela Vithulkas, bringing you the latest in news and views for the SME community. Remember the good old days before the internet, when your marketing strategy was just your advertising budget, which was just the phone book and the newspaper? Then you started faxing your customers with deals and offers. Well, now it's social media marketing, brand storytelling, sharing your values, or being interviewed on SME TV. To join our SME TV community, just subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we encourage you to comment and share our episodes. That's where we need your support. SME TV levels the playing field when it comes to giving you and your business a voice. I promise you'll get heard. Joining me today is Mireille Ryan, CEO of the Social Media Marketing Institute, founder of the Social Media Marketing Summit, and founder of Social Media Marketing Awards. Welcome, Mireille.
Thank you so much for having me, Angela.
Now, I'm going to jump straight in here because I'm going to read my own quote here. You're the epitome, a rare one, of walking the talk for your industry in terms of leading it via the Institute and the Social Media Marketing Awards, etc. The fact that you've had hands-on social media experience in building up your business because you're a successful business owner and entrepreneur this side and parallel your industry leading now. So tell us a little bit about that experience and that journey when you leaped from one to the other.
Well, my background is actually in the fitness industry, and when I was starting to launch my fitness business, I didn't have a big budget. And so I was looking at ways that I could connect with my audience. And when I was doing this, it was right when Facebook was just sort of starting to come into view. And so what I did is I started to use Facebook to be able to start engaging with my audience, answering their questions, and then also using targeted ads to be able to zero in on my ideal demographic. And, you know, when I compared it to some of the other ways that I had started marketing, you know, letterbox drops and newspaper ads and things like that, I found that it just had such an amazing result for such little budget. And, you know, I guess my love affair with social media started at that stage. And as I started to grow that business and people saw the success that I was having, people started asking me about how I was doing it and wanted help. And so I started doing more and more coaching and consulting on the side when it came to social media, and found that, you know, I'd been in the fitness industry for a little while at that stage. And so my passion for fitness had sort of waned a little bit. It was more of a job instead of a passion. And my passion was moving into the space of social media. So that's when I decided.
It's a natural growth, though, for a business owner and entrepreneur to often you get exposed to another side, because if you've done well in your own right, people want to know what that recipe, what those ingredients were for that success. And in your case, it was the marketing, that success around building your own business and what that entailed, which was part of social media. So if we look at that, I mean, I was cheeky in the intro when I said, you know, in the old days we had a marketing budget and a fax machine. The fact is now that social media marketing is a huge component in most business owners' lives, in particular small business, because it's cheap.
And also it's been something that's been super important as we've gone into the pandemic, because, you know, when we look at our marketing stack, you know, we tend to have multiple things, and social media is part of that stack. But when we found out that, you know, we weren't able to, particularly those face-to-face businesses, that we couldn't, you know, connect with our audiences in the way that we traditionally would have in the past, this is when social media really came to the forefront, because it allowed us to connect and engage with our audiences and still continue that relationship, even though we had to be socially distanced from our audience.
Well, let's look at some of the news items right now that are very, very prevalent in the social media world, or the digital world, we'll say. Let's look at TikTok. Tell me what's going on there.
Well, TikTok has been in the news a lot lately, particularly since we've had the United States President Donald Trump threatening to ban TikTok in the US. But what's actually been really interesting is we've just had some data come out about the most downloaded apps in the world for the month of August. And what we've seen is, even with this potential threat, TikTok was still the most downloaded non-gaming app in the world. So it shows that people are not dissuaded from that. And what's also interesting is with this whole dynamic with the President of the United States, there's 100 million users in the United States that use TikTok. So it has a massive audience. And, you know, I guess, and I can understand the US president has been, you know, has said that he and the intelligence community have concerns with TikTok and, you know, its potential. They see a potential for it to be compromised. TikTok is totally disputing that and has been actually working really, really hard to try and partner and work around these issues. And they have recently just announced in the last few days that they've actually brought on a trusted partner, Oracle, as a way to basically help, I guess,
to give them that credibility. And look, it's an unusual situation, or I should say more usual these days in the world, where one person thinks they're going to make the global impact to be able to influence, you know, in isolation 100 million users in the US. Unlikely that a US president was going to be able to say, you know, naughty, naughty, don't use it anymore, which is a little bit, you know, the freedom of speech on one hand and the freedom of being able to use an app on the other hand. I mean, it's unusual. Had we seen 100 million users drop to 10 million, then maybe we would have listened to him, but no. At the same time, no, we've got Facebook back in the news. One not so positive, but one positive. Facebook actually stepping up for small business in being able to launch, I think, the small business suite.
Yes, Facebook have just announced yesterday that they are streamlining the way that small business owners are able to use their products, particularly Facebook and Instagram. And, you know, it's always been a bit frustrating for business owners because, you know, particularly when it came to Instagram, being able to manage that, you know, a lot of people using third-party apps to be able to manage their Instagram. Well, Facebook has now streamlined that process and they've brought that together. And so now they've released something called the Facebook Business Suite, which is basically allowing businesses to be able to manage their Facebook and Instagram from the one platform. And that's going to make it so much easier. It's going to save time. It's going to help everyone stay up to date with everything. And, you know, it's going to help with, you know, managing your business results as well.
Mireille, is that because they acknowledge that there's been a problem with Instagram and being able to use it on third-party platforms?
Well, I think, you know, anytime, you know, I mean, Facebook, I think, are trying to work, you know, they want to keep their ecosystem protected. And, you know, obviously the more people you have accessing it, you know, there's issues and data breaches and things. So I think that's part of the reason. But also, you know, Facebook wants everybody to stay on Facebook and on Instagram. They don't want them going to other places. Yeah. So, you know, by having them there, I mean, I know for me as a small business user, it can be really frustrating sometimes trying to use Instagram. You know, there's, you know, being able to schedule content. I mean, when I'm a small business owner, I don't have time to be there in the day doing what I need to do on my social media when I've got so many other hats that I've got to be wearing. So
well, my senior producer was going to corner you after we finish with this interview and ask you exactly that about Instagram, because it's one of the banes of her existences.
Well, that's, I mean, and this is helping to alleviate some of these issues, because it's going to enable us to be able to do those things like scheduling and in preparing content and doing all those things that, you know, can be quite frustrating, so that we can have that continued connection with our audience. I mean, it doesn't stop us still having to engage on the platform, but it just helps us with our content management and those messages that we want to share.
Which is the time issue that we have as a small business owner. And what about the issues around Facebook and news in Australia?
Well, this has been an interesting thing. I mean, this is Facebook and also Google, and it's basically the Australian government has come out and said that they feel that Facebook and Google are unfairly using, I guess, or benefiting from all the hard work of the Australian news publishers and sharing that out. And so they've basically said that they feel that these, you know, Facebook and Google should actually compensate the news publishers for all the work that they're doing, because they're sharing that out. And as you can imagine, both Google and Facebook have come back and they've said that they're not really thrilled with that at all, that they don't want to pay, they don't feel that they should pay. And in fact, they feel that the news publishers actually benefit because they are actually sharing out their content to, you know, everybody on there. And I mean, when you look at the way people use their information, you know, almost a half of Australia's users actually get their news from the social media platforms.
Do you think this is going to be will it be a Mexican standoff?
Well, it could be. I mean, the Australian government says they're standing firm, and so the platforms are saying that they're threatening to actually basically cut that access to news. So it will be interesting to see how it plays out. But both sides seem to have dug their heels in, and we'll just have to wait and see how this unfolds.
And let's just quickly look at today's digital structure, or what most organisations would have as a strategy flow. I mean, we're trying to manage our social media. We've got to consider content marketing. We've got to consider influencer marketing, another spanner there in our head. And of course, my favourite, SEO Link Building. If we look at that, Mireille, we're obviously not going to have time to go into great detail on most of them, but I'd like to look at that flow. What are your thoughts there on trying to actually manage your social media?
Well, one of the things which is really hard, I guess, for any business, but particularly small businesses, is actually having a structure there in the first place. I see a lot of businesses, they're really just every day just trying to find content and just throwing it up, because of being, I guess, time poor is probably one of the main reasons. But I think that if you can plan and work out how you're going to utilize your social media and what your key objectives are for using social media in the first place, I think then you can start to get that structure and that workflow so that you can plan your content, you know what your objectives are, and then you can analyze those results so that you can make sure that if things aren't working, you can adjust and get yourself back on track when it comes to social media.
So in terms of content marketing, it's really taking, this year in particular, it's starting to factor more and more into what the small business owner needs to look at and how they put their brand forward. Has that always been the case with content marketing, or is it the new digital wave?
Well, I think when it comes to the way we market to our audience, I mean, I think that the way, this year has definitely been an interesting year because we probably had to, for most businesses, had to adjust that whole plan that they had in place. I mean, when we started this year, we had our content strategies ready to go, and then COVID hit, and suddenly some of our messages, if we just continued on with them, they would, for some businesses, could appear tone deaf. So one thing that's important when it comes to any type of strategy is we need to make sure that we're agile and we can adjust our pathway, and that we also are listening to our audience and really answering their questions. Really, at the end of the day, if we just get onto social media and broadcast, which we see a lot of organisations doing, they take those traditional media type messages and just slap them onto their social media, they're not going to work. Those who engage, those who really listen, and those who share content that really helps the audience move forward and helps them, particularly in this time of stress and pain, that they're going to be the ones who are successful.
So I want to touch on influencer marketing, but we're not going to have a lot of time to look at that. But is it here to stay? I mean, are the rise of the influencer and influencer marketing, is that going to peak somehow, and we're going to say, that person that gets millions of hits on Instagram, although has no experience in that other field, it's just by association enhances the marketing? Do you think that will go out of fashion as quickly as it came in?
I don't think that we're going to see it go anywhere. I think we're going to see it transition, because when we've talked about influencer marketing in the past, we tend to look at those real big influencers. Obviously the Kardashians jump to mind, or celebrities, or those kind of people. Where I think the way that influencer marketing is heading, and we've already seen it, is that you're going to have the micro and nano influencers, which are those people who only have very small but really engaged audiences. They're going to be the people who we're going to see businesses really partner with. And whilst their audience might not be so large, their influence is very strong with their audience. And so I think we're going to see that continue. I think we're also going to see that we're going to see the influencers start to actually partner with the businesses, so there's some skin in the game. Instead of just just doing one placement, we're going to see businesses actually partner with influencers in an ongoing relationship that will enable both to benefit from helping each other.
A little bit more like the old traditional days of where they got a high profile sponsorship, particularly in sport. Use this racket, you win the US Open. You use this football, you win the NRL Cup, or something like that. I mean, that's association by brand and talent, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think
and not necessarily that way.
I think it's going to be a little bit more that they will actually get percentage of sales. So instead of it just being here's some money and they do it once, I think there'll be ongoing percentages for all the sales that they actually help produce.
Which might increase their level of enthusiasm in participation.
Absolutely. And also making sure that they keep themselves out of mischief or any concerns that could potentially cause damage to the brand, because they'll also be impacting, damaging their own earning potential.
That sounds right. Well, thank you so much for that, Mireille. Mireille, obviously we know that we could talk a long time on this, and as you've said, we mentioned off air the issues around data, and data analytics is a big one to look at, and SEO is something I want to cover again. So we'll come back to you and get you on for another session. Hopefully maybe by then the borders will have opened up and you'll have come into New South Wales.
Oh, absolutely. I'm definitely planning to, and it would be awesome to be able to connect in person.
Yeah, and have you in studio. Thank you so much for joining us. To everyone out there in YouTube land, if you haven't subscribed, it's very easy. You just press the button and there you are. Piedmont Studio, thank you for making us look and sound good. And of course to the SME Association, without you, we wouldn't be here. If you have any comments, tips, tricks or stories you'd like to share, you can reach out directly to me. news@smea.org.au, and of course we're across all the socials. Thank you so much, Mireille.
My pleasure.